Order in the court. We will now proceed with the testimony of Mr. LeBron James. Counselor, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. James, please state your full name and occupation for the record.
LeBron Raymond James. I'm a professional basketball player, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. I own multiple businesses, including Spring Hill Company, and I'm a partner in several investment ventures.
Thank you, Mr. James. Can you confirm your relationship, if any, with the defendant, Mr. Sean Combs?
Sean and I have crossed paths in the entertainment and business world for years. We've attended events together, collaborated on a few promotional projects through his music and my media ventures. But I wouldn't call it a close personal relationship. It's been strictly professional, and even that's been complicated.
Complicated how, Mr. James?
I've always tried to keep my business clean, transparent. My brand is built on integrity on and off the court. But working with Sean, I started seeing things that didn't sit right. Things that made me question his business practices and, frankly, his character.
Objection, Your Honor. Vague and speculative. The witness is making broad statements without evidence.
Sustained. Mr. James, please be specific in your testimony. Stick to facts.
My apologies, Your Honor. Let me break it down. About 3 years ago, in 2022, I was approached by Sean's team for a potential partnership between my media company, Spring Hill, and his Revolt TV network. The pitch was a joint streaming platform for sports and music content. Big vision, big money. I was interested because it aligned with my goal of empowering creators and telling authentic stories.
And what happened with this proposed partnership?
We got deep into negotiations. Signed NDAs, shared financials, the works. My team did due diligence, and that's when red flags started popping up. Sean's financial records for Revolt were inconsistent. Numbers didn't add up, revenue streams that looked inflated, expenses that didn't make sense. My CFO flagged it, and we started asking questions.
Can you elaborate on these inconsistencies?
Sure. There were large cash transactions listed as consulting fees to shell companies with no clear purpose. One of them I remember was called Deluxe Ventures. We couldn't find any record of it online, no website, no employees, just a PO box in Delaware. Another was a series of payments to individuals who, when we dug deeper, had no verifiable connection to Revolt's operations. It looked like money was being funneled somewhere, but we couldn't trace where.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness is not a financial expert. This is hearsay based on his team's findings, not his direct knowledge.
Your Honor, Mr. James is testifying to his direct involvement in the negotiations and the concerns raised by his team, which he personally reviewed as the head of Spring Hill.
Overruled. Mr. James, continue, but focus on what you personally observed or acted upon.
Understood, Your Honor. I personally reviewed the documents. I sat in meetings where Sean brushed off our questions. He'd say things like, "That's just how the music business works," or "You don't need to worry about the details, Bron." But I'm not the type to sign off on something I don't understand. When I pressed him for clarity, he got defensive, said I was overstepping by questioning his books.
And how did you respond to that?
I told him I wasn't comfortable moving forward unless we got full transparency. My team recommended an independent audit, and I backed them up. That's when things got heated. Sean pulled out of the deal, accused me of not trusting him, said I was acting like I'm above him. I didn't care about the ego trip. I cared about protecting my company and my reputation.
Did this interaction lead to any further discoveries about Mr. Combs' business practices?
Yeah, after the deal fell apart, someone from Sean's inner circle, a former employee who I won't name for their safety, reached out to me privately. They were scared, said they'd seen things at Bad Boy Entertainment and Revolt that went beyond bad accounting. They mentioned coercion, threats, people being pressured to stay quiet about off-the-books dealings.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor. This is an anonymous source with no corroboration.
Your Honor, this testimony establishes Mr. James' state of mind and the reasons he took further action, which we will substantiate with additional evidence.
I'll allow it for now, but Mr. James, refrain from repeating unverified claims unless you can tie them to your direct actions or observations.
Yes, Your Honor. That conversation spooked me enough to dig deeper. I hired a private firm to look into Sean's businesses, not out of spite, but to protect myself. If my name was tied to him in any way, I needed to know what I was dealing with. The firm found evidence of what they called potential money laundering patterns. Large sums moving through offshore accounts, tied to entities with no clear business purpose. They also flagged a pattern of NDAs, dozens of them, signed by former employees, contractors, even artists, all with clauses that seemed designed to silence them.
Can you clarify what you mean by silence them?
The NDAs weren't just about protecting trade secrets. They had clauses that barred people from talking about anything they saw or heard while working for Sean, period. One of my advisors, who's seen a lot of contracts, said it was unusual, like they were trying to cover up more than just business strategies. Combined with the financial red flags, it felt Wrong.
Your Honor, this is speculative at best. Mr. James is not a lawyer or an investigator. He's painting a narrative without evidence.
Mr. Agnifilo, you'll have your chance to cross-examine. For now, let the witness finish. Proceed, Mr. James.
Thank you, Your Honor. Look, I'm not here to play detective. I'm here because what I saw and heard made me believe Sean was involved in something shady, something that could have dragged my name through the mud if I hadn't walked away. But it wasn't just about money. There were stories, credible ones, about how Sean treated people, artists, employees, even business partners like me. Intimidation, threats. I heard from one artist who said Sean threatened to ruin their career if they didn't sign over rights to their music. This wasn't just business. It felt personal, predatory.
Mr. James, let's focus on a specific incident. Can you tell us about an event in 2023 involving Mr. Combs that you witnessed directly?
Yeah. It was at a charity gala in Miami, spring of 23. Sean and I were both there raising money for youth programs. I was there with my foundation, the LeBron James Family Foundation, and he was representing his own nonprofit. Everything was fine until later that night. I saw Sean corner one of his former artists, a young guy, talented, maybe 22 years old, in a private room off the main hall. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I was nearby and the door was cracked.
What did you overhear?
Sean was yelling, telling the kid he'd never work again if he didn't play ball. Said he'd make sure every label in the industry blackballed him. The kid was shaken, almost in tears. I didn't know the full context, but it wasn't just a contract dispute. It felt like Sean was using his power to scare this kid into submission. I stepped in, told Sean to back off. He laughed it off, said it was just business, but the look in his eyes, it wasn't friendly.
And how did this incident affect your view of Mr. Combs?
It confirmed what I'd been hearing. Sean's not just a businessman, he's someone who uses fear to get what he wants. I've been in tough negotiations, I've dealt with egos, but this was different. It was cruel. And it wasn't an isolated thing. I started hearing similar stories from others in the industry, producers, dancers, even executives. People were afraid to cross him.
Mr. James, you've made serious allegations about Mr. Combs' financial practices and behavior. Did you take any actions based on these concerns?
I did. I cut all professional ties with him. I told my team to steer clear of any projects involving his companies. And when I was approached by investigators about a year ago, I shared what I knew. I didn't want to be here testifying, but I've got a responsibility. Not just to my business, but to the people who look up to me. If Sean's been breaking the law, hurting people, I can't stay silent.
Thank you, Mr. James. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Agnifilo, your cross-examination.
Mr. James, let's be clear. You're a basketball player, not a forensic accountant or a law enforcement officer, correct?
I'm a businessman who's built a multi-million-dollar empire from the ground up. I know how to read a balance sheet, and I know when something's off.
But you relied on your team's analysis, not your own expertise, to flag these so-called inconsistencies in my client's financials, didn't you?
My team did the groundwork, but I reviewed it myself. I don't sign off on anything I don't understand.
And this anonymous source you mentioned, this former employee who was supposedly scared, you can't name them, can you? Because they don't exist or because you're protecting a convenient fiction?
They exist. I'm not naming them because they're afraid of what Sean might do. I've seen how he operates.
So we're supposed to take your word for it. A man who's admitted to having a professional rivalry with my client, you wanted his platform, his influence, and when the deal fell through, you decided to smear him. Isn't that the real story?
I don't need Sean's platform, I've got my own. I walked away because I didn't trust him, not because I wanted to smear him. If I'm here, it's because I was subpoenaed, not because I've got a vendetta.
And this alleged incident at the gala, conveniently, no one else saw it, did they? Just you, overhearing a private conversation with no witnesses to corroborate your story.
The kid he was threatening saw it. I'm sure he'd tell you himself if he wasn't terrified of Sean.
Your Honor, I move to strike Mr. James' testimony as speculative and uncorroborated. He's weaving a narrative to damage my client's reputation.
Your Honor, Mr. James has provided specific, detailed accounts based on his direct involvement and observations. The defense can challenge the weight of his testimony, but it's admissible.
I'll allow the testimony to stand, but the jury will decide its credibility. Mr. Agnifilo, do you have further questions?
Not at this time, Your Honor, but I reserve the right to recall the witness.
Very well, Mr. James, you may step down. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning.